Recently, Ben Popper from The Verge investigated the Huaqiangbei Market in Shenzhen, China, a place where one resident says gadgets are their natural resource. Ben Popper joins us to talk about his experience. Welcome back to the show, Ben.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So you say that this market is sort of a brain for the electronic supply chain that stretches across China. Describe a little bit about what you can find at the market.
So you go in, and on the first floor, you can find, high-end phones from Chinese brands like Huawei. And you can also find the latest knockoff iPhones. I got a very convincing fake iPhone 7 there a week before it came out. And then as you get deeper into the market, you can find component suppliers for anything. So, if you're looking for gyroscopes or camera lenses or processors, you could go in there and say, I need 10,000 tablets for this market in Southeast Asia or Africa. These are my specs. Who can give me the best price and get me 10,000 units in a month? And, you'll work with all of the vendors there, and they're connected to the factories and the suppliers all across China. And so you could sort of work out a deal there, and a month later, you've got 10,000 new tablets ready to sell.
So could I just walk in there and, say I wanted to build a giant robot or something? Could I just walk in there and do that?
Yeah, I don't know about a giant robot. You could certainly build a drone. You could certainly build a toy robot. And you could certainly build a custom TWiT tablet with a custom logo and a custom case. And, the whole soup to nuts of making, electronics, it can be done there.
And so did they give you a hard time, when you went in and were filming? I've heard that they sometimes don't like cameras in there. Did you have any issues with that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We were told that and we were expecting that, but I think it's changed a lot because it's not as much about counterfeit goods and copycat goods anymore. It's more about stuff that they're creating there, so a lot of original products, or about, the very upfront business of saying, I can make you something, how would you like it made? So I think they're a little bit more comfortable with cameras now. Wired did a documentary, we did a story, and I think kind of reframed a little bit of the conception of what the market is about, which is to say it's as much about innovation as it is about, copyright infringement.
Now, what about legitimacy? On another show I do on the network, all about Android, we've had a handful of guests on the show that have been to markets like this, and they come back with the craziest, coolest Android gadgets, right? Phones, things that are shaped like bunnies but actually have a SIM card slot, just the weird random stuff, but always with the kind of the cautionary saying or phrase that be careful what you plug into this because you never know what's going to happen. Are these is all this legitimate, or what is the level of legitimacy with a lot of the markets that you find here?
It's interesting. We were told that people there could do a really great phone repair if you had a cracked screen or something like that. It could be done super cheaply, but that also if you weren't careful while you were repairing, all of your memory would be swapped out for old stale stuff. And if you don't know who you're talking to and you can't establish trust through maybe a third party, I'm sure you could get ripped off at the market. That was the implication that I got. But, when you're talking about sourcing something, it's a much bigger process than just, one device. And there are a lot of people now who have sort of set themselves up to be the liaison between people who are coming in from the West and, the people who are here. So a lot of Kickstarter folks who dream up a project, like you said, that's powered off Android, but don't have any expertise in manufacturing, this would be the kind of place where they would go and hash it out with people who do have that expertise.
Now, Shenzhen itself is an amazing place. That's where the market is. It started as a fishing village, and now it's just huge. And now they say they produce more millionaires than anywhere in the world. What do you think all of that now innovation is? What's behind that? Is it that the fact that they share IP in a different way than we do? What do you think is behind their growth?
Well, yeah, I think part of it was that Shenzhen was a special economic zone. So it was the first place in China, one of the first places in China that was encouraged to take outside investment. And they learned a lot from the Taiwanese about chip making and then from American companies. So they kind of started out, as the cheap manufacturer. And as they learned the business, then they broke off and started doing their own stuff. So, the ZTE and the HTC and the Huawei's of the world, the DJIs, they were all kind of born there because the supply chain was there. And as people learned the supply chain, some of them broke off and started doing their own creations. I think obviously China is just so massive. They have a market there for internet consumers that's, 3 or 4 times the size of what's in the US. And so, you can create new businesses on just a fantastic scale. In terms of, sharing IP, I do think that, some of what we learned in the market was that it's much less about, for example, patents and copyright. Like it has very little legitimacy there. And so that means you have to move faster. If you're going to create something, somebody else is going to copycat it. So you always have to be moving on to the next thing. So I think that does help to push the pace of innovation, the fact that they don't expect there to be any respect for intellectual property rights, and that they would rather collaborate than try to, litigate.
And sometimes that's amazing and creates something wonderful and innovative. And sometimes it's like hoverboards, where they moved so fast with no anything, and then we had a lot of fires on our hands.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that there's both. I think that there's people like, DJI, who's a market leader, and there's people like Huawei and Oppo, who are now, creating phones that are of the caliber of, an iPhone. And then there's just this humongous group underneath that who knock off that stuff and do it cheaply and do it dangerously. That is the nature of the beast there, very much.
Yeah, you mentioned in your piece and in the video that, the hoverboard, as an example that you just brought up, was there years before it kind of made it to the western side of the world, let's say. While you were there, I don't know, what's the next hoverboard? Were there any technologies or anything that you saw that you were like, this, we're not seeing this, but this could be a trend?
I was looking for the next hot thing. I don't think I found anything where I thought, oh man, this is it. There was like the Bluetooth car cigarette lighter that's also an earpiece and also a smartwatch if you want it to be. There was like the crazy soccer ball that becomes a solar powered lamp. There was stuff that was wacky, but then again, if you showed me a hoverboard and been like, this is going to be the big thing, I would have been like, yeah, whatever, okay. It's like it didn't seem that cool to me when I first saw it either. So it's hard to predict those kinds of trends,
Sure.
Selfie sticks, hoverboards, like drones. Like drones are just like, they could just be a cheap toy, or they could be like the next big thing.
Yeah.